and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and it is so good to have you with us. New Jersey has one of the highest rates of autism in the country. Those diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder can have difficulty communicating or understanding what others think and feel. It is also difficult to respond to others, whether it be in their schools, community, or even as they interact on the roadways. Today, we're going to talk about a new program in Hunterdon County aimed at helping those drivers. It's called the Blue Envelope Program. That's coming up. First, though, I had a chance encounter with my own representative in Trenton, and it led to this conversation. Joining me now is State Senator Andy Zwicker, who took his current seat in the Senate earlier this year and represents the 16th District, which takes in parts of Hunterdon, Mercer, and Middlesex counties. Senator, thank you for coming on the show. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you, Laura. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, a funny thing happened on the way to take my son to his boxing class in Flemington. I'm sitting there paying attention to his routine, and all of a sudden, some legislature, you walked in, but it wasn't for a press conference. It wasn't, with a big entourage. You were there, and I share that story because a lot of the focus in the political coverage is what happens in Trenton, but being a lawmaker, state legislator, it goes far beyond that, and it includes going to events and then just reaching out to your constituents. So can you tell us a little bit about what happens outside of Trenton and in the community?
Sure. Laura, I'm so glad you asked that question because much of what we do is just reaching out one-on-one with a variety of different people. It could be someone who's struggling to get a driver's license renewed. It could be a small business owner, and that's where you and I ran into each other. We were talking to the owner of the gym about finding another location that might be walkable. That location is on a highway. And so we came together to talk about what that might look like. But these sort of things, we come out of COVID, we spend a lot of time helping people with unemployment issues. We help a lot of people with just dealing with the bureaucracy of state government. So that is quite honestly some of the most personally satisfying parts of the job because we're helping people and families one at a time. And it's something you can see, it's something tangible. But that is by far the vast majority of what a legislator does on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and people forget that there is an Office of Constituent Services. You're elected to represent and help on things like you mentioned, if you have an issue with taxes or just with bureaucratic red tape. You have people who are there to take those calls and to answer those questions.
I have staff who are experts and they work full-time just on helping people. And, I wish, of course, that wasn't a full-time job, that our bureaucracy would work perfectly, but we all know that it doesn't. And so having someone an expert in navigating this and trying to cut through the red tape and also identify where the problems are so that then we can go down to Trenton and try to fix those is part of everything that we do.
Well, can you talk a little bit about public engagement and how that impacts your role in the Senate? So many people, and I know the Senate isn't the same as the Assembly, but the Assembly, it's every other year. So you're in a perpetual state of always running for office. So a lot of people do turn into, it seems like all they do is campaign. So how does that public engagement and those interactions you meet approach how you act as a state senator?
Though, talking to the public, whether it's one-on-one or in a large forum, is how I really understand what are the needs of the people that I represent. What are the challenges of the people that I represent? I can't do that sitting in my dining room here or sitting in the State House in Trenton. I need to be out and about. I have 14 towns in my district, each one of them unique, wonderful, certain challenges there. And so by meeting with people, talking to them about what are some of the challenges that they face, it helps make me, hopefully, a better senator, but certainly helps to define what I need to do in my day-to-day job.
People in the state are always, one of the issues that we're always facing is the issue of affordability. And Governor Murphy recently signed into law a new amendment that moves up the start date for the state child tax credit. So can you talk a little bit about that and what it means for New Jersey families and their tax bills? Because that affordability is something you hear again and again when people are saying, what are the issues most important to you?
Absolutely. And we are talking about making sure that people and families who need it the most have access to money for food, for clothing, for school supplies, to pay their utility bills or their rent. And this child tax credit program, which we based off of what the federal government did about a year ago, is raising children and families out of poverty. And I think that's really key. When the federal government did this, they measured it and they found that it raised more than 60 million children above the poverty line out of 30 million households, right? It reduced hunger and food insufficiency by about 25% in children. This is putting money directly back into the hands of our lower income residents. And so New Jersey went ahead and said, let's model a similar thing with a state tax credit. And what just passed that you referenced to was to ensure that this takes effect now. And when the original bill got drafted, it wasn't going to affect for a full year. And we said, no, people are really hurting. Prices are going up. We see the cost of food going up. Inflation is just causing everything to become more expensive. Let's go ahead and make sure that we do what we had originally intended to do, was make this effective immediately. And so this puts up to $500 per family directly right back into a person's hands, depending upon how much money you make. But if you make between $30,000 and $80,000 a year, then you will get a tax credit in your very next tax bill, which comes out next year. Right. So that's what we're doing, right? We're making New Jersey a more affordable place to live.
Right, right. And it's not something that can happen overnight. It didn't become the most expensive place. And that is what, sometimes critics will say, well, we put this in a budget and then we don't reap the benefits for a year or two down the line. And there is that immediate need because everything costs so much more right now, too.
Exactly. It's also why both in the Senate and the Assembly, we passed property tax rebates so that up to $1,500 can go back to both homeowners and renters. We understand it, right? I have 3 children of my own. We understand how expensive it is. And so that is exactly what we need to do. We talked before about handling bureaucratic red tape, but the other piece is how do we make sure that we have the best school systems in the country, that people have access to high quality jobs and high paying jobs? And how do we make New Jersey more affordable? And this child tax credit or the property tax rebate are part of what we do as legislators to try to make it just a little bit easier to live and raise a family here in New Jersey.
Well, you also voted yes on a bill that was released from committee that would require state pension fund to divest from fossil fuel companies within 2 years of the bill's enactment. So can you talk about what role you think that it could have in addressing another issue that people are very concerned about, and that is climate change?
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, I am a scientist and I spend my days when I'm not a senator working on developing energy and electricity that doesn't produce any greenhouse gases, that doesn't pollute. It's one of the energies of the future. It's called fusion energy. But in the meantime, we're working to build up solar and wind and battery storage and energy efficiency and hydrogen and so much more. And we know that with the increase in all of the storms, we just saw the rainfall that we had here in New Jersey. We all saw the photographs and videos of what happened in Florida just last month. We know last year what happened again in New Jersey, where not only people died because of these superstorms. So climate change is here. It is more than real. It's having an enormous impact upon our daily lives. And I worry greatly about the future of my own children and my grandchildren as we have to deal with a warming planet. So with that, you start going, okay, well, what can we do as a state? Because this is a global problem. And what the legislation that you're referencing said is, well, where we invest our money is part of who we are as a state. And so let's look at the top 200 fossil fuel companies where we are investing money and say, you know what, let's go put that money elsewhere. We're going to invest it someplace else that isn't producing fossil fuels. And to be clear, fossil fuels aren't going away anytime soon. There's a lot of headlines that are out there suggesting that. They're going to be around for many decades to come, but we need to get them to transition out. We need to make that transition now because time is getting very short. And one of the ways that we should also be doing that is saying, we're going to go and make a statement, invest our money elsewhere while we continue to work on making New Jersey and the United States and the planet as clean and pollution-free as possible.
There will be sometimes issues that come up, and those in leadership will make statements, and then the public will push back and say, well, you're not a doctor, you're not a scientist. Oh, but you actually are. You are. So working as a physicist before entering politics, so how does that shape, or how do you plan on using that to help really drive the dialogue? Because when you get any topic, you know, about converting over, and this is going to cost a lot of money, it's going to hurt people. Well, if you don't do it, then it's going to hurt people as well. Are you able, is that part of who you are as a state senator, is looking to try and explain, here's the reality of it, you know, getting away from who cares right or left, here are the facts?
So of course, you know, as a scientist, I try to make sure we're only talking about facts. But I get it, because, you know, winter is coming and it will be cold. And so people, so wait a minute, you know, we had a big snowstorm. How could you tell me that the earth is warming every year if it's cold outside? Of course, our experiences are what our experiences are. And we are talking about, when we discuss climate change, we are talking about decades in the making and impacts that are going to go decades into the future, right? And so having these conversations and listening about what are the concerns are really, really important. It's the first step. I think another one, and this comes to the job as a legislator, is making sure that we put public policies in place to ease the transition. Because it's not fair to say to people, and we talked about how expensive it is to live in New Jersey, it's not fair to say, now we need you to, you know, change this, spend more money on that when you are still struggling to pay your rent or buy food. And so good public policies will make sure that the funding is in place to assist in that transition. And I look a lot at that. How do we assist people to make the transition so that we can electrify our cars, we can electrify our homes, and we can, in the end, save lives? Because don't forget, we are talking about saving lives. If we put into place all of these measures, we, among other things, reduce the amount of air pollution that people are breathing in from, let's say, diesel buses. The impact of that on people's health is immediate, and studies have shown it will save thousands of people's lives. So this is all tied together, but it really does start with conversation.
Any other issues before I let you go? Any other issues that are on your radar, any that you're prioritizing right now?
So let's see, we've done climate change, the future of the earth. We've done affordability and raising people out of poverty. You know, I think the other one where—
World peace, right?
World peace, I could go there, but I'm a state legislator. So I think the place where I'm really proud of New Jersey is what we've already done when it comes to voting. There's a lot in the news. We're coming up to the midterm congressional elections. Stuff is in the news all the time. And New Jerseyans have put together a series of measures to make it easier to vote, to make sure that our votes are counted and counted properly. And there has been no partisanship. This is Democrats and Republicans and unaffiliated people all working together. I'm really proud to have been a part of some of that legislation, but more proud of how we have come together as a state to really protect our elections when we see that there are other states that are, you know, perhaps doing things that are making it tougher to vote. And so that's been on my mind a lot as we head into the midterm elections.
Well, Senator, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And I'm telling you, I was just running errands and going to activities with my son, and I was able to invite you on the show. So thank you so much for coming on, and we hope that you come back again.
I'd be delighted. I'll see you at the gym sometime soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Senator.
All right, take care.
Getting your driver's license is an exciting time for most drivers It's the parents who often worry about their child taking to the road. And for those who have a family member on the autism spectrum, well, that worry can escalate to a different level. That's why one county is introducing a program aimed at helping those who have challenges communicating, and it's called the Blue Envelope Program. Joining me now to discuss the Blue Envelope Program is Timothy Barlow, who is the Hunterdon County Police Chiefs Association president. Welcome, Chief. Thank you so much for coming on. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Blue Envelope Program. Starting in October, those with autism can pick up this blue envelope, and it's going to help them do what that they would need to use in a traffic stop. Can you explain a little bit about what the blue envelope is?
The program is developed to help improve the interaction between a police officer on a traffic stop and the person who is possibly on the autism spectrum, who is the driver. Our program was rolled out, like you said, on October 1st. And we became aware of this program because it was first developed in the state of Connecticut. It was sponsored by the Connecticut Chiefs Association, and eventually became a law in Connecticut, which requires that the Division of Motor Vehicles in Connecticut provides these envelopes to anybody who may be on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about, when somebody gets pulled over when they're driving, even under the best of conditions, you get nervous. You feel your heart fluttering, that you feel like you need a drink of water or something, and it can be very intimidating. But if you have somebody on the autism spectrum who's perfectly capable of driving, sometimes their behavior can come off different or as defiant or as challenging authority. So can you talk a little bit about, what you're hoping that this will accomplish?
Sure. Well, the primary goal of the program is to assist the drivers with their documents. So they can organize their license or registration insurance inside the envelope. And it helps them to understand what to do when they're on a traffic stop. It explains to them what the police officer might typically do. They may have a radio, they may have a flashlight, there's going to be flashing lights on the patrol car. They may ask them some questions that they may not be used to. We also instruct the driver to keep their hands on the wheel until they are instructed to do otherwise. And then the envelope also assists the officer.
Well, because this is something that is only available right now in Hunterdon County, and it was based upon a program in Connecticut where it is now law. Are you hoping that this program is successful and perhaps it is made into legislation in New Jersey so that drivers are required to have this? And I'm guessing that law enforcement then would also be trained.
Correct. Well, it is our hope that this expands beyond the borders of Hunterdon County and will eventually become a statewide program. We're working with our State Chiefs Association and with some local legislators to hopefully get this as a bill and get it passed into law.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us a little bit about, so much pressure is put on police officers to know wherever they're responding, whether it's a domestic call, whether it's, a crime in progress, and now, drivers on the autism spectrum. And this is personal to me because I have, children on the autism spectrum of driving age, and it is really scary because I can understand how easily it is to misinterpret behavior, which is not meant to be, disrespectful, but someone in law enforcement might say, oh boy, they look like they're resisting, or they look like they're giving me a smart mouth, and it can escalate. So can you talk a little bit about the training that will help officers as well?
Exactly. Well, the Blue Envelope program itself, like I said, it helps the person who is the driver, but it also provides the police officers with a means to quickly identify the person as being on autism spectrum. It'll provide a guide for the officers of what they may expect or what kind of interaction they're going to have with the person. So
far, have you had many people come to pick up a blue envelope just yet?
Well, they've been distributed to each of the police departments within Hunterdon County, including the Sheriff's Department, the Prosecutor's Office, and each of the state police barracks within our county. Speaking for myself and my department at Tewksbury Township, we've had a handful of people come in so far. The big thing right now is just trying to spread the word, getting it out so people are aware of the program, and they'll start coming and picking them up.
Yeah, and now, when you heard about this idea, what made you think this is something I want in Hunterdon County? Was there something personal tied to this, or is this just something that you look and you saw in your department, hey, we don't have access, or we don't have, this is an area for improvement? Where did this impact you?
Well, like yourself, I do have a son who was on the spectrum. And in fact, just prior to us looking into this program, my son was driving and he was pulled over for a traffic violation. Prior to that, my wife and I were aware that there may be a time where he may get pulled over. So we used to rehearse these situations with him. But by having this program, my son may be ready, but the officer may not understand what's going on. So by him being able to give the officer the envelope, it would just give him a heads up of what to expect.
Yeah. And this envelope, it doesn't target anybody. You know, like I remember when the red stickers first came out on the license tag, when you had a student driver, parents in the very beginning were saying, oh, I don't want to have a sticker on my license tag because that's going to target me. Right? This is something that you keep in your glove box. It's not something that is posted anywhere on your car to where people are taken advantage of.
Correct. Number one, it's a voluntary program. People don't have to do it. And it's something they will be keeping in their glove box or above their visor. And they would only provide it to a police officer when they're on traffic stop or they're requested to provide their license or registration.
Right. And, you know, so many parents, I never thought to practice with my daughter. I never thought to practice what happens when you get pulled over. I mean, you're in law enforcement, so that's on your radar. So this isn't something that is necessarily incorporated in to a lot of driver's ed. And especially during COVID, students didn't get access to driver's ed. They just went to their driving schools a lot of time to get that information. So they didn't have that.
Correct. And this is something that the practicing and rehearsing beforehand, I would suggest not only for persons on the autism spectrum, but for any new driver, because this could be a scary situation for anyone. They're not sure what to expect. It could be very nerve-wracking for anyone.
Right. Now, I know Hunterdon County has a lot of resources for people. There's a registry. There's also a project Lifesaver. If people want to get more information, where can they go to find out more about this program?
They wish to get more information on the Blue Envelope program. They can reach out to their individual police departments, or they can go onto the Hunterdon County Chief of Police Association's website to get additional information about the Special Needs Registry or Project Lifesaver. They can reach out to Hunterdon County Sheriff's Office, or they can go onto their website.
Okay. Well, Chief, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about what the Blue Envelope program is and how to get that information. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
10 years after Superstorm Sandy struck, many families devastated by the storm are still rebuilding. Governor Phil Murphy was joined by many elected officials at a commemoration event in Port Monmouth. The governor says at least 151 New Jersey families still haven't been able to rebuild, and hundreds more are stuck in financial limbo.
The people of New Jersey came together to restore. Sandy proved that sometimes it takes the very worst of times to bring out the very best in ourselves. Neighbors whose homes weren't damaged welcomed those whose homes were. Communities gathered in city halls, libraries, and schools, anywhere with power, for impromptu potluck dinners. Crock-pots sharing power strips and grills rolled out street side and prepared hot meals with food that would otherwise go bad in powerless homes. Our representatives, as I mentioned in Washington, stepped up in a big way, providing billions of much-needed dollars in emergency rebuilding and resilience funds for families, businesses, and big cities and small towns, more than $10 billion in all. And led by the Department of Environmental Protection's Blue Acres program, thousands of residents have been moved out of harm's way through the purchase and demolition of more than 800 of the worst flood-prone houses in our state, ending the merry-go-round of flood, rebuild, repeat, with, by the way, hundreds of more buyouts planned in flood-prone areas around the state. And I might add, to complement these buyouts, the Department of Community Affairs has led the way by repairing and elevating nearly 7,000 homes throughout the state post-Sandy, with tens of millions more dedicated to future elevations using Tropical Storm Ida disaster funding.
I will never forget driving on the night the storm was hitting, doing one last survey of my city, getting a call from the President of the United States, Barack Obama, checking in on Newark and its people. I hung up with him and I got a call from our then governor. Same thing, checking in. Are you okay? How's this community looking? My car is being, heavy SUV being blown around the street as we're doing one last check before I went to the command center with everyone else. And there as we're coming up in the West Ward of Newark, and I see a light through the wind and the rain and the dark. And as we get closer, I also see that all the telephone poles and trees at the top of this hill had come crashing down already, and the light was flashing at us. That we would have stopped either anyway, but now we stop, and I have my window right in front of the man, and I roll down the window. It's an elderly man in a yellow slicker with a big floodlight. And my first reaction to him was, what are you doing out here? And he looks at me like I've asked him just a dumb question, and he points at all the wire and wood, and he says, I'm standing out here to make sure no one comes along and gets hurt. I just talked to the President of the United States, the governor of my state. I'm the mayor of the largest city, but the greatness I saw best exhibited on that stormy night was the man with a light in his hand in the dark of night and savage of storm, standing on a hill to protect his fellow New Jerseyans.
We all know the numbers that reflect this. The governor referred to it. 2.6 million residents without power, $36.8 billion in damages, and most tragically, dozens of deaths, including many in New Jersey. But underlying these statistics is a story of grit and purpose, of perseverance and resilience. It's a story of hardworking New Jerseyans coming together to rebuild one home, one business, and one community at a time. We call those two words Jersey Strong. Simple as that.
There is more help on the way from the federal government. Over $13 billion from Congress's infrastructure bill has been set aside to help New Jersey prepare for future climate disasters.
And that will do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.